So, Christabel, first thing my team asked me when I'm meeting a career design coach is that why are candidates not reading the job description when they're applying for an opportunity?
Very interesting. And my audience, when I told them that I'm going to be talking to a staffing specialist, a talent acquisition specialist, the one thing that they wanted me to ask you was why do candidates keep ghosting their employees like 3 to 4 to 5 rounds in? So, what's going on, Sachith?
Right. Looks like there's a lot of grievances which needs to be addressed today.
Yes. And hopefully, along the way, we find some answers into how we as professionals can navigate our careers in this very dynamic environment.
Perfect. Welcome to Career Poker Night. What we call this as more of a gambling. The domain that we are in, there's no certain rules. Things are changing pretty dynamic. So let's discuss more in terms of how to go about it.
So, I'm Christabel. I am a career design coach. I've been in the industry now for 2 decades, navigating across supply chain management to edtech to real estate to a whole host of other industries as well. And more than anything, I've been in that messy middle where I'm wondering, in terms of transition from one to another, what are the things that I need to factor in? Should I just go with the flow? And all of that experience and how to is what I bring to the board right now, and excited to share that with you all. Right, Sachit. So, why are we doing this career poker night? Tell us about how you see the current environment from your lens, Sachit.
Yeah. So I'm the managing director of Recruise India Consulting into the hiring space, um, where we're setting up a lot of GCCs and as well as in the research front where company wants to understand what the landscape are. So it's going to be something interesting where I think your intro, as you rightly mentioned about the career design aspect, it's so complementing in terms of what you've been doing and what I've been doing. So I'm interested to have those conversations and see in terms of what we uncover.
Let's go. The first theme that we're going to be talking about is career design versus the hiring reality. So, how do you see this playing out today, Sachit?
So I would give a bit of a context in terms of what was happening earlier, right? So in our time, there was only limited options, right? So there's nothing much in terms of what I need to plan and stuff like that. So there was only three options, right? Either you become an engineer, you become a doctor, or become a chartered accountant, or in terms of finance side fit. Uh, so there was not much of an option. I think now there's so many options which are on table. There's so many options which we need to look at. So I think it's important to have a plan in that place. I think have a plan. So that's the reason it's very important. According to your experience, how are you looking at it?
In my experience, what has played out in terms of career design is that many times when we try to wing it, right, and we just find ourselves going with the flow, and we're not super intentional about why we are where we are and where we want to take this. That's one way to run your track. But what happens many times is that you're probably growing well in your career or in your job profile, but your personal life, the way that's playing out in the background of all of this, is not going great, right? And your hours are stretched.
Yeah.
Many things about your work that are affecting your personal life is not really in alignment. And what career design actually helps you to do is to take a pause, examine the various aspects of your life that you think are important,
Yeah.
where we cover not just health, but mental health as well. And what is going to be your North Star that you want to grow in, right? In direction in which you want to go. And many times one doesn't know exactly what one wants to do, right? You have an inkling, okay,
Yeah.
I might enjoy this, but you don't know for sure. And you're in that space where you're a little bit confused. Career design actually gives you a framework to work through those areas. And yeah, I look forward to getting into more of that as we progress.
All right. Interesting. And the same context, I had certain questions, right? Is the career design important earlier in the career, or is it the midlines, or is it in the leadership?
That's a good question. Actually, career design is is just a concept. It's not really something that you want to apply only at different in a particular stage. Rather, it's something that you want to think about at every pretty much every stage of your career, right? It's just about taking that intentional pause and not working yourself too much with, okay, what should I do? Oh, I don't know exactly what I need to do, and now I'm stressed about it. It really gives you the permission to relax a little bit, play around with a few ideas, experiment. We call it prototyping, right? Where you take up small projects and kind of see how that is playing out for you. Because doing something for the love of it is one thing, whereas doing something that can actually pay your bills and helps you grow in that direction, helps you support your family and all of that is a different thing. You don't want to mix the two. But it's just about giving yourself that permission to take a step back and become more aware around yourself about what your next step really needs to be.
All right. No, I feel it's important because I'm in the other side of it where we are helping a lot of folks in the job market, find opportunity, and as well from the client's side of it, find the fit, right? So for me, career design is predominantly sounds fancy, right? But as you rightly said, it's important to kind of understand where it's fitting in. How do you kind of align those aspirations or in terms of passion, and then take things forward.
Sachit, tell us about the hiring reality that you're seeing play out in today's day and age.
Oh yeah, I think things have changed
A lot.
a lot. Yeah, I think every 6 months things have been changing, right? So it's hard for clients from their side, from the candidate side of it, and we are bridging that gap, right? It's dynamic, as I mentioned, in terms of expectations of the skill, expectations from the software elements. What's happening right now is interesting thing is about the culture fitment. Earlier, that was not the case. It was more skill-based fitment was which used to happen. But now, clients are more interested in terms of whether the person fits into a culture. Um, so what we are doing at Recruise is when we're evaluating a candidate, we are also evaluating the client, understanding in terms of what's the culture like. Um, so earlier it used to be just about the job understanding. We were never interested in terms of, I know they have certain services, but we were not interested in terms of culture. Right now, we are getting into that bit where what is the culture? If the candidate has a certain traits, does it match? Because that goes a long way. Because many a times we would have seen it's not just about the skill, it's in the final interviews and final discussions when the CHRO comes into play. He or she is looking at the culture fitment and the rejection happens. So what we are trying to do is bridge those gaps, understand, educate the candidate side of it, candidates client side of it. So that's a bit of a change that we're seeing now.
That's super interesting. Tell me a little bit more about how you assess cultures of an organization, because culture is one of those things that you can't like walk up and ask, the MD or the CEO, what is your company culture?
No, that
And even if you do, it's not like you're going to get the correct answer.
no, it's yeah, that's yeah, I think that's interesting because I had this event recently where the same question was asked in terms of how do I understand the culture. The way I assess or we assess is a difference between a banking to a startup to a company which is already stabilized, right? There is a culture within. Like if it's a startup which is really, really aggressive, the culture is like fast paced, right? They want things to change. They're not looking at stability. They're looking at things to move fast, right? Whereas if you look at the banking, let's say examples of a Wells Fargo or JP Morgan, their culture is more value is more important, stability is important, in terms of long term aspect is important. So these alignment is important, right? Imagine I get a startup person and put this guy into a legacy based company which has been there for a long period of time, which might be, let's give it an example of Unilever, right? I get somebody from an aggressive startup. I know Flipkart no more as a startup, but the initial setup experience that I had, I got this person into this company, and then this guy was like, all over, let's make this thing change tomorrow, right? Doesn't work, because Unilever has built the culture for a long period of time, processes and all that. Any change there takes a long period of time. You can't change overnight. But startup culture is totally different, because we were operating from Vishu and few more companies which are startups. Things needs to change, very dynamic. Yeah, that's how you evaluate the culture fitment and then see if there's a match. So, Christabel, one of the questions that I always been asked about when we're setting up GCCs, or even certain companies which are setting up new, is the marketing and as well as in terms of brand side of it. Um, is there something that you can share based on your experience in the marketing or branding side, how they should go about?
Sure. So when you talk about branding in this aspect, right, there is two parts to it. One is the employee themselves and the personal branding that they have built around them. Um, how they're showing up on LinkedIn, whether they have their own website, whether they have a few other assets out there on the internet where people can get a peek into who is this individual,
Yeah.
what does the individual bring to the table, not just in terms of your hard skill sets, whereas that is also important, right? The certifications that you have, because degrees by themselves are no longer sufficient. And how often are we doing work in the areas that we actually got our degrees in, right? You and I are good cases in point on this. We both have electronics degrees, by the way, right? And he's in staffing and I'm in marketing and career design.
True.
So that's fine. But whatever we did gives us that unique lens and a way of thinking that goes along with it, which is something extremely valuable, regardless of what is your function, what is your industry. So, so that bit about the personal branding becomes pertinent for the individual. When you look at employer branding, of course, that's hugely paramount, right? Whether it is the way their LinkedIn is showcased, what not just what they do as a company and what are their services and offerings and products and all of that, but how they do it. What are the conversations that are happening around them, whether it is from their own mouth, whether it is from the mouth of their employees, from their partners, from their customers. All of this is available today. And I'm sure an individual, when they are scoping whether they want to go ahead with a particular brand, whether the organization has already captured the market or not, is going to be to go and check all of these things.
Yeah, that's true. I think based on our experience, I think it pretty much resonate in terms of what you've been telling. One of the other thing that I would like to add is the leadership, right? I always recommend this, and it's really, really a strong thing that'll help in terms of the branding and as well as marketing side of it. Is the leadership telling the story, right?
True.
Many in any organization, the leader is not shown at all, because it's not the company that I'm selling, right? Company is a brand. Obviously, we kind of tell about, okay, there's an opportunity here, but it's also about the leader who's hiring, right, or setting up the team. How the leader is representing this brand. So I always tell that leader, why don't you have a conversation? Why don't you tell the story, right? That's when it's easy for me to attract. You can't be, behind the curtains. You need to come up, come front and tell the story and tell that, okay, this is what we're trying to build. Makes so much of a difference. Imagine I am reaching out to an opportunity or reaching out to candidates and telling that, okay, he's the leader and he comes with, solid experience, wherever, so and so, and then he comes with this skill set and this is what you're going to learn. That impact is much more bigger than
Absolutely.
talking about the brand.
Very interestingly, Sachit, on that note, even on LinkedIn, right, the reach that an individual has
Yeah.
is at least 12 times more than a company page's reach. So it's in the leadership's interest to actually put themselves out there, and just bring the human side of things to the fore too, because at the end of the day, it's people.
Yeah.
It's not just organizations and a job description.
Oh, so true. It doesn't mean that you spend thousands of dollars on just putting up a banner. Because recently there was one of the leadership event where the question was put on to me saying, okay, what should we do for the branding? Should I be spending X amount of money, put up a big hoarding next to Manyata or put up in Maratali, etc. So I said, just get the leadership out,
Yeah.
right? Let him talk in terms of he or she talk about what he's building. That'll make the deals special. And the other bit is also about the conversation, right? From our angle, so just to give you a stats, every opportunity that we kind of get, or any job opportunities that we're trying to fill at Recruise, every day we have a conversation, almost like 30, 40 people per day, right? Per recruiter. So you multiply that with another 30, 30 into 5. So you see the amount of conversation that's been happening
That's a lot.
for months. If we mess up that conversation, then obviously the brand thing goes for a toss. And what happens is it's basically like a funnel. You're just radiating the funnel because you're not filtered it properly. And it's only so much that you left for the opportunity that you're looking at. So that's where a lot of organization, what happens is they get stuck, right? There are a certain number, they don't understand what they did wrong. I would say these are all the fundamental things we need to be careful when you're evaluating certain stuff. How do you brand? How do you put out the story as a leader being shown in case? So it's not just about spending a lot of money. It's about uh, getting the context right.
Many professionals seem to be stumped with what should I do next, right? Should I make this career jump because somehow I'm not very happy about where I am, but they're not very clear about what to do next or where to go next. What would be your advice to them?
So one of the things that I always suggest is the smaller bits, right? That's more important. Within the organization, there is a lot of opportunity that you can look at. It's not just about changing career. That's not the only aspect of it, because it talks volume in terms of how you have navigated the challenges within the organization. Even if it's a smaller, mid, larger, it has its own way in terms of to navigate things, right? So you need to take the smaller bets to see if I can get into another function. I always go with that T model, where it's not just the top hierarchy, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. You're just not looking at becoming an analyst to a VP in just one research angle. If it's a research vertical, you need to also get into the mid level and then move into the and maybe an HR domain, or if it's into IT side of it, which you've not even learned, right? So those smaller bet go a long way, right? These are the people ultimately become the successful leaders over a period of time, because they've touched upon all angle, right? It's more like an entrepreneur, right? Why is that making a lot of difference? There's one of the company that I was talking to, um, that they are hiring a lot of failed entrepreneurs, right? This is one of the posts also that I had put up in LinkedIn, um, where they only hire failed entrepreneurs, right? I know it's very hard word when I say failed entrepreneur,
Yeah.
mostly because they did do a lot of stuff on their own, right? Right from administration activity in terms of getting the infrastructure set up, hiring themselves, and then legal stuff, the CA bit of it, which is really, really tough here in India, and then scaling those challenges and getting those first invoice in, and then struggling, getting everything is done by those entrepreneurs. So this was interesting. An organization at a leadership level, this company went about hiring all these entrepreneurs. And then what's happening as an organization, you had a mini companies which are running its own way with the same values or visions which have been aligned. Fantastic concept.
Yeah,
So
totally. I don't think there's any such thing as a failed
yeah,
entrepreneur on that note, because it's who you become along the way, right? And yeah, just to add a little bit more to that from a career design perspective, and when you're talking about small bets versus big career moves, the one thing that I always offer as a lens to look through this conundrum is, everything does not have to be one grand move, from industry to industry or something like that. If when you're feeling stuck, what helps is to again just take a pause and understand, just do an audit of how are you feeling with different parts of your job, right? Because getting something done involves so many steps. And let's say 1 to 100, it may be about 20% that is giving you that high, or you find yourself in that flow where you really love what you're doing. But then there is also that other bit, that whatever 50, 60% of things that need to get done, without which you won't get to this outcome, right?
So true.
But it depends on whether it makes sense to kind of stick through that because that's a necessary part of getting you to release this value, or then zeroing in only on that 20, 30% and changing your career around just that, right? That requires a lot of introspection. And what I would also always suggest is to do like a prototype. Um, and do take it up as a small project, and think about running that as a full cycle. It could be, let's say, if you're drawn to teaching and becoming a trainer, right? Now, wanting to become a trainer, liking to become a trainer is one part of it, but actually being good at it is a different part of it, right? If you are just put on the spot and say, now train, as much as you like many things about that, you may not be able to do a brilliant job. But when you take it up as a project, right, and you do it with some bit of intentionality rather than just trying to wing it, what you'll do is, okay, say, okay, what are the skills that I would need, right? Maybe there are some core inherent things that are actually I already bring to the table, that level of patience, that level of empathy towards the people that I'm guiding and teaching. And then it's also being able to hold the space for your for the crowd, right? Being interesting enough for them to actually pay attention. Otherwise, you might think you're teaching them and they might be going to sleep, right? So that's a learnable skill, though, right? So that's what comes into play with prototyping. What is drawing you? Do it for a small project. See how you feel around all of that. Which bits you're liking, which bits you're not. Right? Doing something versus building a business out of it is completely different, right? But doing that is also important because you can't outsource everything from the start, or you might land yourself in not a very good place because other people are taking you for a ride in those aspects.
True. So what you're trying to say is the smaller bets what you take would lead you to the larger
Yes.
sums of life,
Yes.
right? So it's so important, right? How do we, put those small
Yeah.
bricks in right places and then build those story for you? I think that's what is going to be successful leaders. I think the story that I've heard with a lot of successful leaders, there's a lot of smaller bets which they've taken, which they've got them to where they are, right? There's always a misconception or a misunderstanding. There's always a misunderstanding. It's like I keep jumping into another company every 1 year, and then there's going to be a success. That's not true, because when actually we did a study, actually, um, uh, and there is a study that is done in terms of the people who've changing careers every now and then versus. I'm not saying that you just stay with the organization forever, but there is an average about 8 9 years of tenure, when which and then you switch, or within the organization you want to move into another vertical or take up some other role, is more more successful than just being changing those jobs on a regular instances. When they're doing that smaller changes, right, often there's a movement, they're just stuck at that place for a long period of time. So it's just like, for example, if somebody had a to every 1 year they're kind of moving in, that'll after 6 years they're going to hit a
Stagnate.
it just gets stagnated, and then goes till about 12 years. So that is a longer period of time. So though they felt that they kind of moved in, it's like the tortoise,
Yeah.
and
The hare and the
the
tortoise.
hare and the tortoise story, right? So it's also about long-term aspect.
Yeah. In the short term, it looks like you're
Yeah.
moving fast, but actually in the longer term, you're slowing down.
It is. I have so many examples
Yeah.
on those within my team and as well as a client, and I always look at it. And then if you look at it on a contrary, from the staffing side of it, you know, people, what do you say? I advocate, I shouldn't be advocating it, because more than
Yeah, right.
they
Move, the better it is for
more
you.
they move, the better it is for me.
Now to get into the big theme, which is really the elephant in the room, with especially where Recruise is positioned. This entire boom that we're seeing of GCCs in India. Give us a bit of context to this, the backstory to this, and what we should look for going forward.
All right. That's definitely a big elephant. It's already becoming big because what it started off was a smaller piece is become really big, right? And it's going to grow as well. It's going to be the at least for the this year and next year and the next, I would say next at least 5 6 years, things are going to be really big, and it's promising for India. So what we're doing is we're helping a lot of GCCs scale in India, and the quality of work is also changing, right? Earlier, it used to be more of a back office setup. Right now, it's more of innovation that's happening. IP is getting created out of India.
Right.
The talent landscape itself is changing. So that's really good. So what happens is when we look at the GCC angle, it's more of creation, which is happening out of India, innovation. As if there's always a question saying, what have we created out of India? Everything is in the US, right? Apple, Microsoft, Google, all the high-end products is getting created out of the US or other parts of the world. In India, hardly any. But I think that dynamic will change, at least in the next 5 6 years when we do have a conversation on this. I think those things, in terms of the IP, in terms of what we created, I would at least have a lot of pointers, is what I presume. But those things are changing in the GCC aspects of it. What we're trying to do, what the GCCs are doing here is to create certain product out of India. I think that'll be really interesting to see. And the talent landscape, yes. So the expectation is that they want somebody who's thinking end to end, not just about executing back office talent. So that dynamics have changed in the GCC.
Yeah. That's a very interesting point that you touched on. This thing about people bringing different perspectives, and so earlier, I think the perception was that if you are in one function, and then you jumped to another function, you were somewhere viewed as not very focused. But actually today, that is becoming a big strength because especially in the context of GCCs, because they need people who are more able to think from these diverse perspectives and really problem solve and get things done,
Yeah,
which is difficult to do if you are in just one function for a very, very long time.
true. No, that's a valid point, right? They are looking at multi, experience in different fields as well. Within within the organization, have they touched upon the other elements? Makes a big difference, right? It can't be a shallow approach that they're just there and then stuck. But the other bit is about the entire fundamentals in terms of the talent depth that GCC look at and what they're creating. Any and the biggest I keep talking about a lot of leadership because we do look at a lot of leadership hiring in the GCC, right? Okay, what's happening here is the GCC leaders. There's a lot of control in the global element, which is not really a GCC. GCC is nothing but you have an extension, like what Lalit uh, from ANSR tells that GCC is nothing but if your office is on the 11th floor, the 12th floor is what's your other office, right? That means whichever is in Bangalore is on 12th floor. It's no different than that.
Right.
It's just an extension there. So you should look at it on that concept. You should not look at it as a back end office. So they should be equally invested and as well as equally respected and looked at for any decision that's happening. They should also be on the boards where the key decisions are being made, which makes so much of a difference, right? So those things are happening already, but I would urge that any GCCs which are coming in, if they're hiring the leadership element, this part of uh, you know uh, leadership, ownership, you should give that ownership for the leaders to kind of execute things out of India.
All right. So we're ending with the rapid fire. Sachit, are you ready?
Okay, let's do it.
What's a red flag in a job interview?
Not knowing about the company.
Should you take a pay cut for the role that you love?
Absolutely.
What's the biggest mistake job seekers are making right now?
Yeah, I think it's the instability. Uh, yeah, they can't be jumping every now and then. Okay, now it's my turn for the rapid fire. What's the overrated career advice?
Follow your passion.
All right. One thing you would tell someone who's feeling stuck in their career?
You don't have to have it all figured out in one go. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Experiment with the things that you think are bringing you energy and take it from there.
Wow.
All right, so that's a wrap on our Career Poker Night. Thank you for being with us. And make sure to follow us on our LinkedIn handles and our Instagram handles. You have them all linked below. And such as any parting words.
Yeah, I hope it was useful. I enjoyed this conversation as I was looking forward for this conversation since it was more to do with career and job. Uh, I am hoping we will do more of these sessions and then add value for people who are watching. I'm sure it's mostly from the job and market and clients. A lot of questions which is answered. And if there's anything else, as Christabel mentioned, my handles below, maybe you should reach out.
Yes, and let us know in the comments what you'd like us to cover in the next series of things to follow. I'm sure this is the first, and we're going to have a lot more such collaborative sessions to bring you.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you, Christabel.
Hopefully, we've decoded some of the rules that are governing how we can navigate our careers in today's time of flux,
Yeah,
and we'll continue doing so. Thank you.
cheers.